hello, everyone, and welcome back to Embodied. I'm Anne Bérubé, I'm your host, and today I have such a gift for you. I mean, it's a gift for me, so therefore it's going to be a gift for you. I have my very good soul friend from the stars, Nancy Regan, on the podcast. I'm so happy to be in conversation with her. I mean, we could talk for hours, so we're just gonna
We could and we have.
exactly. I know. I'm so happy that you said yes to this conversation, Nancy, and to be in complete transparency, we just got back from an incredible trip in Kauai, and so we're both super primed and connected and tan.
And in my case, still recovering. I've been particularly busy since I got back. I basically rolled off the plane at 2 a.m. and right into work. And so this weekend I've taken a little time to decompress. And as you can see, I'm wearing my hat from Kauai, which is truly the most perfect piece of wardrobe I've ever had or owned. It says slow yourself down. The only thing is, when I look at it in the mirror, it's backwards. Is it backwards for you?
It's actually fine for me. So,
Okay.
yeah. Oh,
I hope it's okay for the viewers, but that's what it says, just in case. It's not hieroglyphics. And I know it's there, even when it's on my head and I can't see it. And part of my appearance today and being willing to show up in my hat and just sort of half upside down is that I totally trust you, Anne, and I always trust that when we're in conversation, it just goes as smoothly as it's meant to.
absolutely. And it is kind of a great branding for the title of your book. From showing off to showing up. Like, this is Nancy showing up, and it's my very favorite thing about you is I know that when I'm in your presence, it's you're right there, present, authentic, and you're showing up with all of you. So I think the hat is perfect.
Thank you. And so was Kauai. So was it, for those of your listeners who have not been on a retreat with you, or particularly a retreat like that where you are relocated, you're dislocated, I like that, from your normal life and planted in a very different environment and atmosphere, it really enables the kind of magic that Anne enacts or brings. True.
Mhm. It's true, even for me to be out of my environment and to be in a place that is so, where the veil is so thin and you can feel the energy so um, concretely, like you can really, it's palpable. It definitely accelerates my own teachings and my own showing up for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. I
Oh,
love to witness that.
thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of people know that it's where I am most myself is on those islands. And I was telling you yesterday that when I come back from Kauai, like, now it feels like it was almost a dream. The difference is so big between there and here. So the idea and the work is to be able to, remember Kauai and the Lemurian energy while we're here and live it, even in Nova Scotia or wherever we are in the world.
So far after this trip, which is my third or fourth with you, I would say I'm doing the best at exactly what you just suggested because I have this image of sitting a little distance away from the beautiful banyan tree and feeling a connection with the roots to my root chakra and really as if its roots were grounding me and intermingling with my own roots and that image, that visualization has really served me well in the past week, especially the part of the week where I was really busy.
Wow. Oh, I love that. And for people who are listening who don't know what the banyan tree is, a 300-year-old banyan tree in the west side of the island at the Waimea plantation. And it is an energetic portal that kind of projects you into a possible future. It's about future pacing and, okay, what is my role as I move forward in this lifetime with my intentions and my desires and, my full heart? What is possible and what's my role? And that energy center there really supports that. So I love that you brought the tree back with you,
Mhm.
your root.
Just the image. I don't want anyone upset about, horticultural importation. Uh,
Safe and sound back in home.
yeah, I want to say something. You see, I'm already taking control. This is the problem with interviewing someone who's used to interviewing other people.
It's your job. It's what you do.
Right away, I want to say something that springs from what you just mentioned, and that is I loved your conversation with Nancy Dancing Light Sherwood.
Mm.
As you know, I've done some work with Nancy. I've experienced her work through you and your retreats. And I really absolutely adored your conversation. I learned so much more about her, but also, it gave me all sorts of nice little explosions in terms of, oh, right, I get it. Little synapses going off in my brain. One of the things that the two of you talked about, and I think you said that you had heard this expression or you had talked about this with both Nancy and Prune Harris, is that idea of 2 feet on the path. And I I want to be very transparent because that resonated in my heart, uh, in my imposter heart in a way, because I realized right away, oh yeah, a lot of the time I just have one foot on the path. I
Mm.
have one foot in the busy world and one foot on the path, my spiritual path. And when I'm in Kauai, it's why I feel the most myself because I have both feet firmly planted there or lightly planted there actually because it's
Yeah.
so playful. And I really appreciated that expression because it just was a bit of a meditation for me in terms of what really drags me off the path.
Mm-hmm.
And you're someone who I witness really being dedicated to keeping 2 feet right on that path. And so this is something, I always try to emulate, but for me, it's like a meditation because I keep catching myself off it again. And it's, I just pull myself back with compassion. Oh, come on back. Remember, this is the way.
I think that's a really good thing to bring up, Nancy, because the what does that mean, 2 feet on the path? And I'm not always 2 feet on the path, even though you might perceive me as always having 2 feet on the path. I'm not. And I don't see having a busy life as not having 2 feet on the path necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that 2 feet on the path is in my chosen career or my chosen endeavors or how I'm creative, how I spend my days. Am I as present as possible? And so I could be a cafe worker and I am 2 feet on the path, or I could be an executive that's super busy of a big corporation with 2 feet on the path if presence and showing up is
Oh, that's good.
is part of is the idea, right? So when for me, not having 2 feet on the path is when I engage in like activities that do not allow me to be present, or where I'm not I don't let myself be present in those activities or in those tasks or
Mm-hmm. Like when you're out downtown bar fighting.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that,
I've tried
and it's
to,
it's not pretty.
yeah,
I'm
tried
outing
to
Anne.
limit my
No,
bar fighting, but it's hard.
I really appreciate your clarification, and I recognize it as part of my imposter syndrome. And I will say that I try to be present in every day, I try in every moment of every day. It is a meditation, it is a practice. But I also know that you are not always firmly planted on the path, but you're there a lot more than I am. So I really look to that as a good example.
Oh, thank you.
True.
The other thing I wanted to say about that is that not everybody's path is about being a spiritual teacher either, right? Or creating content for, to share. And so sometimes people equate, being 2 feet on the path is someone who lives this life of being the spiritual teacher. But really, like if I think about my husband, that's not his role. But I do feel like he is 2 feet committed to his path.
Absolutely.
And so it's not everybody has the same path and purpose in coming here. So what is your purpose? What is your path? What is this line that is absolutely you? And
Mhm.
then are you most of the time on it?
And I can still bring light and amplify the light of others while I'm doing my work, because that's sort of the work I've chosen.
Yeah. And that is what
And
you do.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
don't have to be signaling. And in some ways, maybe that would be virtue signaling I'm talking about anyway. I
Mhm.
don't have to be signaling that I'm spiritual, but there is still a part of me. And when I wrote my book, this was an issue. I remember really, it was a memoir, and it was supposed to be about authenticity and as you say, showing up instead of showing off. So living my life according to my own purpose and passion rather than the expectations of others, instead of wearing a mask and showing off. And yet I was struggling with how much of my own relationship with spirituality to include in the book. And one night I was here at my cottage actually, and it was a storm, and I had the best realizations during storms. I used to call them stormspirations. And all of a sudden I started to laugh at myself because I realized the ridiculousness of writing a book about my journey to authenticity and thinking about how much I'm going to slide under the carpet or keep hidden about my sense of spirituality. And so then I was like, okay, I got the answer. Thank you.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
came out of the closet, of the spiritual closet. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
So for people, this is what I usually do at the beginning of the episode. So now I just want to make sure that people who don't know you, because a lot of my listeners know you, people in Nova Scotia know you as Nancy Regan from Atlantic's Live at 5. And you've been a, TV host and a podcast host. You MC all around the province, maybe even the country. That's how I met you. You were emceeing one of my husband's, Paul's events. And you're also a presentation coach. You help with public speaking and how to show up fully as you, public
Hmm.
speaking, which I think is the best kind of speaking I want to, be witnessing. And you helped me a lot, especially when I was opening up for Wayne Dyer. You were so magnificent in how you helped me feel more confident and just show up as myself. And that was the beginning of, now, like it was everything was history after that. Like it was, you took me through the hardest part of learning how to present, how to speak in front of a huge crowd. um
Wasn't that so fun? I remember we were actually working. I have a kind of big kitchen and I wanted us to be able to move a bit. And I remember working with you and you read what you had the first time around. And I was really able to be in a sense of flow, and I was just giving you feedback, and then you would read it again, and then I would give you feedback. But I really found for the first time in my coaching experience at that time, which was relatively new, I just slid right into the zone and I felt some kind of connection. It was like I was collaborating in the same way I do when I write poetry.
Mm.
At times I was going, how did I know that? That's good. And you just blossomed, like you were like a bud and you just blossomed. So that was such a joyful experience, partly because I really stepped into my own power as a presentation coach, allowing myself to collaborate with whatever source was coming in and
Mm-hmm.
whatever source was supporting you. And yeah, it was really, really fun. And that's the way I always do it now, in a sense of true presence.
Wow.
And it's really, when I worked on TV for a long time, I would always do a type of coaching with someone right before I interviewed them because people were typically very nervous. And so it was my job, part of my job, to relax them before we did the interview, especially if it was a live interview. And I can't tell you how many times I heard people after the interview say, "Oh, that wasn't so bad. You made it so easy."
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to understanding the simple concept that most people, when they're nervous about stepping into the spotlight, whether it's an interview or out on the stage, they are caught in a mindset of performance. So they're worried about how they're going to be judged. So they're worried about how they're going to do.
Yeah.
And if I can flip a switch and change the channel and move them over to a mindset of contribution, which is really just, oh, here's what I have to share. I'm in the very present moment and I'm just sharing with you, and I have something of value that, is going to be meaningful to you. All of a sudden, they could completely transform their sense of presence on the stage, because people hear about stage presence and they think it's this sort of mystical thing, but it really is presence.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, because people don't know, like Nancy interviewed people like Oprah and Madonna and Russell Crowe and Harrison Ford. Like this is her, she's a master at this. And when you were talking about coaching me, I wondered, like, you probably always have had that gift of inspiring presence in the other person, and then you just maybe were able to put words on it later, and then really hone in on it. But you've always had that gift and that capacity, and you probably were also knowing what to say in the moment.
Yes, that's interesting, because it's true that in the old days, when I think I was still wearing a mask, when I was in an interview, I would be totally present. And whenever I was engaged in a conversation with someone, usually I would be totally present, certainly on camera, except for this little voice in my head that was going, "That was a dumb thing to say. You made another mistake. You don't even deserve this job." That was the chatter of my imposter that I talk about.
Yeah.
But, I realized that when I was writing a book about the fear of public speaking, and my publisher all of a sudden switched the channel on me and said, "Actually, we've been looking at your samples of writing, and we think you should take public speaking out of the title and out of the book." And I was like, "Well, that's what the book is about. What do you mean?"
The whole
And she said, "No, we think you should do a memoir." And my immediate reaction was, "Absolutely not. No way, Jose. No."
Am I going to expose myself to all these people? Yeah.
It was partly the fear of exposing myself, but at that point I hadn't even got that far. It was more about the scarcity mentality, inadequacy mentality. Who am I to write a book? Why would anyone want to read a book about me?
Right.
Which I realize now is something that every first-time author goes through, and frankly, probably every 10th time author goes through.
Yeah.
And so I really was resistant to that. You know, I was brought up by parents who, even when I was a little girl, because we were in the world of politics, I remember being a little girl of 7 or 8 and serving cookies at a tea to people in a senior's home. And my mother would say, now don't talk about yourself. If someone asks you a question, you can answer the question politely, but then you make sure you ask them about themselves.
Wow.
So that idea of a memoir, a memoir,
Yeah.
didn't sit so comfortably with me at
Not
first.
natural.
However, she kind of forced the issue and said, you gotta just try, let's do this. And it didn't take long before I realized, oh, this principle that I use with my presentation clients is exactly what I'm using in a more broad way in my life. Instead of showing off, I used to be on TV pretending to be very confident and have it all together, even when I was close to falling apart. And now the way I live my life is, here I am, take me or leave me. And what you think of me is none of my business. And so I realized that is really the same thing I was trying to teach my clients, is that instead of stepping into the spotlight, you're really just stepping into your life. Are you showing off or are you showing up? Are you living your life according to other people's judgments and opinions, looking for approval? Or are you shedding that heavy cloak of showing off and just really showing up and saying, okay, this is my life. Here's me in my messy hair and my baseball cap, and just kind of stopping in the middle of the day, completely discombobulated, to talk to Anne, because I know that whatever comes out is meant to be.
Yeah. To me, that is what you just described is learning how to trust yourself. And I mean, it is the theme of the podcast this season. And to me, your book, coming out of the spiritual closet, like that whole part of your life, you learned how to trust that you were enough, exactly how you were, and that you had a connection to your own wisdom, and then you had a capacity to show up with that moment to moment. And that's not something that happens overnight. And I want to read this one line from your book, Nancy, which is a Canadian bestseller, by the way. Just saying, just gonna throw that in there.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you wrote, "My life was perfect. I was confident and outgoing. I was a deliriously happy wife and mother. I loved my job. That all sounds great, doesn't it? Unfortunately, every one of those statements is false. I was false." Oh, I just think so many people could relate to that whole dichotomy there, and yet all of it feels really true.
Get a good look at my watery eyes. Yeah, it still makes me, that just hits me right in the middle of the solar plexus and the heart chakra. And that was a particularly personal passage because it felt so raw. And when they decided to put it on the inside of the book cover, I was like, really? I kind of wanted it hidden inside, but that's not the idea of marketing.
Nope.
So
Vulnerable,
yeah,
emotional, the better.
yeah, that says so much. And you know, Anne, truly, and this also makes me emotional, the most beautiful part of my whole book experience has been that although I was very apprehensive putting it out into the world because it's so personal, I have been flabbergasted by the number of people who have said almost exactly the same thing. I have literally heard from hundreds of people who have said, "You're telling my story."
Yeah.
Or it's like you looked in my head and we've led very different lives, but it's like you're talking about me. And before this book, I would have guessed that in order to appeal to a broad segment of readers, you would have to sort of write in a general fashion. And as you know, but as I learned through this process, the truth is that the more intimate and personal you are in the telling of your story, the more it is allowed by the readers to move deep into a heart level.
Yeah.
You know, if you're coming at it from an whether it's singing or writing or anything, if you are doing it from an intellectual level, I think that's the only place it can hit people. And this is true of a painting too, but sometimes a painting will just hit you in the heart. And I always assume that the artist created it from a very heart-centered place.
Mm-hmm.
So that is there for me in the same way, in the same strange way that if someone writes you an angry email, you can open and read that email and you don't just read the words, you feel the anger.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
that happens very much, I'm happy to say, but I think we've all had that experience.
Well, our mutual friend, Mike Sears, who was on the podcast, the firefighter, his girlfriend, Taryn, is a singer. And she said to me, she has these beautiful lines about being an artist, and I'm always inspired by her. And she said, if writing it makes me cry, then I know it's the right thing to write.
Wow, that's it.
It just completely changed, like, because I grew, like, my background was academia, so my writing was very much from my intellect, which is not fun to read. It's just information, you know?
Yeah.
But when it's coming from that vulnerable place within you, and as you're writing it, you're actually feeling the emotions. You guarantee someone else have been through something similar, not exactly the same, but similar, situation, and they will see themselves and they will be able to put themselves in your shoes, and it will help them, first of all, validate the experience, and then bring some healing. This is my very favorite kind of book, is those books.
And that's it. It's so much about, I used the word scarcity before, but you used the word enough, I think, or I manufactured it in my own head, because it was really so much about not being enough. And what the gift of the book has given me is that it's taught me that that's just the human condition. What I was going through with this sense of I'm not good enough, people think I'm capable, I'm not really capable. Boy, that is the experience of so many people, including some top performers in business who reached out to me, who I look at and think, wow, now they've got it all together. And I would get an email saying, oh my gosh, I'm crying my way through your book because I can relate so much. And every time that happened, whether it was a woman, a man, old, young, every time it said to me, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And that was the second gift of the book, because the first was the therapy. It was the best therapy of my life, because as Taryn told you, when you're writing something personal and meaningful, because the emotion does rise. If you've done enough work with Anne Bérubé so that you allow that emotion to move around.
So can you tell our listeners if there was a specific moment where you could, if you look back, where there was that turning point where you brought more your attention to that enoughness and you started to trust yourself just as you were, what would that moment be? Like, kind of going from that fear to trusting, or from that sense of, life is not on my side, to,
Well, the first, I want to talk about two, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
because I'd like to really take over this interview.
Yeah.
The first is uh, the first is an example of being on stage, because I always needed to be over prepared in order to relax at all on stage. I needed to be prepared, lots of script and, notes and iPad, you name it.
Would you learn it by heart?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And I really feel, this is a presentation tip, but I really feel it's very important when someone gets in front of an audience for the first paragraph, they definitely have to be looking at the audience. They can't be looking at their notes, because it's just like a first date. If you don't have eye contact, you are not going to make a connection. And it is all about connection.
Yeah.
But the time when you and Paul brought Anita Morjani to Halifax, Paul and you maybe asked me to MC that day, and it was a whole day affair, and I would be the thread. I would welcome people in the morning, and I would be the thread throughout the various sessions on stage at the microphone. And the night before, and the day before actually, I kept thinking, oh, I haven't prepared. And I kept, as a practice, letting that thought go, like a meditation. Let that go. Let that go. Recognize it, let it go. And then that instinct got very strong, very loud the night before. And I was really starting to get a little anxious and agitated, because I knew I wasn't ready in terms of being conventionally prepared. I hadn't done enough research. I hadn't done, all the ways I would have, as you say, academically been prepared with my intellect. And and then that night I just said, you know what, Nancy, I do talk to myself.
Mhm.
Nancy, you got to let this go. You just need to show up tomorrow. All you need to do is show up.
Mm.
And that's the first time I used that phrase for myself. And when I did show up the next day, I got on stage to welcome everyone with no notes and no preconceived notions about what I was going to say, which was completely out of character and a little bit scary for sure for me, because I love you and Paul, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing a good job for you and for Anita. And what happened was pretty magical, because I just trusted myself that I had everything I needed to do this. And if I allowed my authentic self to lead the day, then it would just be fine. Everything would be great. And it was at the midway mark of the morning that I popped out into the main area to get a drink or something. And Paul saw me and said, wow, Nance, I've never seen you. It gives me truth bumps still, which, I don't call them chills or goosebumps. They're truth bumps to me. But he said, I've never seen you like this on stage. And we had worked together a lot, because we did this annual charity gala event. And he recognized the difference immediately. And he said, it's amazing. And it was
I remember that
really,
morning. It was really beautiful to watch you. It was like a dance on stage. You were dancing with the energy and with the people. You were just completely present to what was there, and people were locked. Like their eyes were locked on you. Like you had their full attention. In that, like, they're not breaking their attention with you like that. I loved watching that so much.
and that is stage presence.
Mm-hmm.
You think about Wayne, Anne. Oh my gosh, Wayne had it.
You did.
Wayne Tyre, the shows that we did on the east coast of Canada blew me away. It was the first time I had ever seen him live, and here you and I were working with him. I was introducing both of you, and I was mesmerized by this human being that just sat in an armchair on the stage. he might have popped up a couple of times to point at something, but and even that amazed me because he was of an age at that point. I would think, like me, his hips would be creaky when he got up, but he would pop up like he was a 10-year-old. And then otherwise, he just sat in that chair, as you know, and held the audience in the palm of his hand
For
because he
3
was
hours.
3 hours,
Yeah.
because he was totally present.
Like
Connection, connection, connection.
a crowd of mostly middle-aged women, like nobody left to go pee. Like it was like it was 3 hours
Of
nonstop. Everybody was just locked in. And then he ends and you're just like, what just happened? Like you feel like you were into this vortex of love and sharing, sharing in that energy. It was so beautiful. Yeah. But you have that, Nancy. Like that is what you do when you present. That is what you do.
In fact, I don't present, I present.
There we go.
I like to say, I don't want you to get up on the stage and present. I want you to present,
Yes.
you
To
know?
me, it's the most fun thing to do in the entire world. And Greg Braden had said something about like, when you show up on stage, like your only job is to love them. Like just stand there, love them, and then start talking. And that is, I mean, I'm sure for a lot of people it's easier said than done, but it's something to practice. It's just in that connection of the present moment, you being deeply anchored in your body with an audience, you can trust and you can practice to deepen that trust that what is needed will be present and will show up and you'll know what to say because everything will be there plus the magic of the connection of the moment with that.
And the place I'm seeing that in my life right now, Anne, is with this new TV show I'm doing, which is called Showing Up with Nancy Regan. So I better show up. But it feels so different. I just turned 59, although our friend Dimitri says, forget age, it's just a construct. And it's not about wanting to be younger or wanting to be older, but just letting go of the social construct that says, the older I get, the more I go into decay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in growth mode.
Yeah.
And when I am hosting this show, which I absolutely love because it features guests who are really showing up in their lives authentically, dynamically, they're making the world somehow better, brighter, more beautiful. And I love doing it, but it cracks me up that when I set out on a day where I'm going to do a film shoot, there is no sense of, oh, am I going to ask the right questions? Am I going to look good enough? It's all just, I totally trust. And you know what? I don't look good sometimes. And I'll laugh and I'll see a shot and I go, wow, my old self really would have hated that shot. And now I kind of laugh and say, it's part of me. It's one of the dimensions of me. We all have our times when we look good and we look bad. And I don't want to be posing in the world. One of the many poems that moved through me when we were in Kauai was about posing because we were on the beach and you had not come back from the hike yet, but I was on the beach with a few other people and I just walked down a little bit because someone said there are monk seals at rest on the beach. And I went down to see them, and there are these enormous seals just nestled into the sand. But before I got to them, there was a young woman who was probably between 20 and 22, and she had another woman, taking pictures for her on her phone or someone's phone. And she was posing full on with the high cut bikini and very posy. And then she'd go into her normal personality and look at the camera and sort of, have a little consternation, whatever, and give instructions and give it back. And then she'd pose again, this exact pose. And it was such a funny thing to witness because right behind them were the monk seals who were completely relaxed and not posing at all.
Oh.
And they were just, they were at rest, as the sign said, monk seals at rest. And these two girls were just so not, particularly one who was posing. I'm looking to see if I can just find that. Can I read it to you?
Yeah, please.
Do you mind? Here we go. Okay, here it is.
A beautiful poet.
It says, showing up on the Nepali coast, posing is pretending. I'm happy. I'm having fun. I'm here, but I'm not here at all. I'm somewhere else, on another plane, seeking approval. The monk seals are here, lying on Kehi Beach, not looking for the good opinion of anyone, present, relaxed, at rest. They don't need the latest in bikini wear. Their suits suit them. They meet the sand, a refuge from the waves, a Nepali present.
Oh my goodness.
So it's just about being present in our lives and not posing. And that is too often, I think, what we do, whether it's on social media or in our lives. We're posing and pretending instead of really being authentic. And the work of Brene Brown. If we don't show up with our authentic selves, we can't even have a chance of truly authentic connection with other human beings. And that is the return on the investment of really learning to show up in your life. Boy, the connection is, oh my gosh, it's so rich, it's so meaningful. And you're an amazing example as my friend. I don't feel any sense of worry or fear when I'm with you of being judged or being not enough. And that's a really amazing thing to be able to say, because in my early life, I felt that always with other women in particular. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a good point, because when you were talking there, I was thinking, like, why do people pose? And what came was that, it's this basic need that we all have for attention. If we don't have attention, like a baby doesn't have attention, it will die. Like neglect can actually lead to death. Like,
Yeah.
and so, but then we're kind of mixed up with this idea of like attention and validation, and when there's a void in us, right? From that's maybe never been filled, like there's never been that good kind of validation, or there's never been that positive kind of attention, which I think most of us grew up with a little bit of that wound,
Oh, for sure.
and so
Hello.
and so we're searching for this attention in all the wrong places, when at the end of the day, like you said, like it's only gonna, authenticity is the antidote to that, because this, void attention, or this toxic attention that we're seeking, it will never be enough. We see people in the public eye right now, like some of them which we won't name, like it can never be enough. Like you can never have enough attention. So then what's the antidote to that? It's like, oh wait, like this authenticity with myself, and that I can validate myself, and I can be around people who actually want to see me for who I really am, and actually have my best interests at heart.
Hmm. So I love that. And what I take from it is that it's so true. We all have this deep need to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of what I talk about with connection, that fundamental sense of human connection. What we really want is to be seen by others. But if we're only showing people our mask,
Yeah,
then we are not being seen. Our mask is being seen.
exactly.
So we can't have that connection. And that is so common in social media. And it's also, I think about that young woman, and I don't mean to be hard on her, because she's just going through what so many others are on this planet. And especially for women, Anne, when I see beautiful young women, and I think of our daughters right away, I really try never to say you're beautiful. And in some ways, it's too bad because they are. I hope they don't hear this. Uh, but but I always want to say, oh, you're so smart, or you're wise, or because I think the world gives beautiful young women, probably men too, the message that that's where your value lies.
Yeah.
When everyone is constantly talking about your beauty, and all you have to do is look in some of these young women's posts at the comments, oh, you're so hot, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. It's the world all says that's where your value lies.
Mm-hmm.
At my age and stage of life, with my silver hair, my wrinkles and creases, boy, it feels increasingly good to step away from that and to you saw me on the retreat. I didn't do my hair once. I was looking like a wild beach woman.
You look
Um,
beautiful. But to me,
but,
that's the
but
antidote is the
yeah.
coming together in person, right? Because then that good attention, like that kind of attention that fills you up, right? It's just
Yeah.
someone present in their flesh, their meat suit, their flesh suit in
Yeah.
front of you, just breathing deeply and being vulnerable and being open is what we're actually craving and is what's actually going to help us.
Mm. Do you
So,
want the second part of my answer? I said
yeah,
I had two answers and I was going to take over.
yeah.
Well, the second part of my answer is very much about Anne Bérubé. And I was wondering if you've ever on this podcast talked about your specific process when you work with people in retreats.
I don't think so.
So I wrote about this in my book, and I found this copy of my book in my drawer at the cottage yesterday, and I gifted myself this extra day. We're recording this on a Monday, and I gave myself this day because I've been busy just to stay by myself here. And look what I get to do. I get to play with you. But I want to share this little section of my book because this was a moment in my life where things changed. Like I went from before Anne Bérubé, before Turks and Caicos to after Turks and Caicos,
Wow.
before that moment in time to after. And I had no idea. And when you and Nancy Sherwood were talking on your podcast, which I just listened to yesterday, she was mentioning that sometimes you're in what you think is an existential crisis, but it's actually an existential opportunity. And I thought, oh, wow. In a very micro way, that is Anne's work. When you're in the middle of Anne's work of actually discovering embodied emotion, and you are breathing through a meditation that Anne you're leading, and you start to feel emotion rise, it feels like you're out of control. It feels scary. And then Anne has this little smile on her face, like the Mona Lisa, and you think, why is she smiling? and and anyway, on the other side of it, you realize, oh, she was smiling because she knows on the other side of that huge, massive emotion that erupts out of you like a volcano is freedom and a different way of being in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the most plain way I can say it. Like I can't tell people any more than that, except there's a beautiful book called The Choice by Edith Eger. And she was a survivor of Auschwitz. And she became a psychologist or psychiatrist inspired by Viktor Frankl. And she has a beautiful, I really encourage anyone to read the book, The
Mm.
Choice. It's just incredible. But she has a quote that I think embodies your work, Anne, and it's the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is expression.
Yeah.
And when you taught me on a little beach in Turks and Caicos how to embody all that emotion I had stuffed down into my vehicle, this vehicle that carries around my soul, when you taught me how to actually embody it, that changed my life.
Yeah. Oh,
And it helped me be who I really am because it made me feel enough.
it's an honor to have been that person for you, Nancy. Like I remember when Louise did that for me and it changed my life completely. And I wanted to share that with people and to know that, you know, I helped you remember that your body was all you needed to free yourself. Like
It's an instrument.
it's an instrument
That's
and
it.
it's more powerful than we know. And it's got a capacity to move a lot of energy. And we weren't shown how, and we weren't told that we could and that we were capable and that we
Right.
wouldn't die from it or that we wouldn't go crazy from it. It's it fascinates me that still it's not taught in school, you know, that this is not a way of helping kids be more resilient.
Oh my gosh, it has to be. Like
Mm.
it really has to be because it's worth one session of that process with you on that beach. Not that it's a one and done. Like I've had great releases in Kauai where I've left a lot of baggage there that I didn't know I was carrying. But but it really does, I think, serve as, uh, in my opinion, a much more, what's the word I'm looking for, um, productive way of healing than talk therapy. Because what I learned is that talk therapy is all up here, right? It's what we were talking about before. Where is it? It's all in the head. It's the story.
Yeah.
And you made me check out of the story and actually process the emotion. And
Yeah, I mean the story it's valid and but it keeps you in the past and in the worry of the future, and it's just the map. It's not the actual territory. It's not where everything happened.
right,
It's just
right.
an illustration of what happened. Do you want to read what?
Okay, so I'm going to read this. It was, I just am outlining that it was at a retreat called the Celestial Sessions. It was the perfect setting. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. I had done some group sessions at Kripalu before, which is a yoga and retreat center in Massachusetts. So I really thought for a long time, why would you want to get personal in a group? And of course, now I know the answer to that because we are mirrors for each other. And when one person starts to open up, it helps to trigger another person. It's the most powerful thing I've ever done. But I'm going to just read a little bit. And I'll take you right from this part. Anne reminded me to keep my eyes open, even though my natural inclination was to close my eyes and just stop everything, stop. Which is, I love your two expressions. When was the last time you cried until you were done? That changed my life, that expression. And another, when you said to someone, I've never lost someone from breathing. I've never seen anyone die from breathing. Okay, so unlike talk therapy, embodied emotion is not working through what caused the feelings, but about allowing the movement of energy and information through my body. So there I was, tears streaming down my face, desperately trying to surf on what was becoming a tidal wave. It felt like too much. All of a sudden, things got weird. My hands started seizing up, curling in awkwardly. Then my arms followed suit. I couldn't straighten them out. I started to panic. And that's when I saw a hint of a smile appear on Anne's face, and it flipped a switch in me. I was standing there partially paralyzed by this bizarre occurrence, but I was somehow still obediently breathing. And all of a sudden, I felt utter trust in her and in her process. I cried until I was done. Have you ever felt the relief of throwing up after you've been nauseous all day? That's the best way I can describe this experience. Like I vomited out every bit of fear, anxiety, and shame I had been harboring. I began to laugh through my tears, like I am now. And then I was overcome with a different kind of wave, one of pure joy. I had to move. Without explanation or apology, I bolted from the circle, hopped over the railing and into the sand, and ran, fully dressed and at full speed, straight into the water. So, why was Anne smiling while I was a blubbering, snotty mess? Because she knew I had to feel it to heal it, and that the freedom on the other side of that discomfort would be well worth it. I had to breathe through the pain. She was so right, and it's physically impossible for me now to keep a smile off my face when I think about how liberated I felt floating in the ocean at that pivotal moment, like I had been madly treading water all my life and was suddenly buoyant.
Wow.
So,
Oh, Nancy, it makes me emotional to have you read that. I read it many times, but oh,
but I thought that was the right thing to share if you had asked me to share anything from my book today, because it occurred to me that a lot of people may listen to you and love your podcasts, but not know exactly what your work involves. And really, that was the biggest gift in my life. Gift is a word I keep repeating today, but there's a reason. There really is.
for me in that process, my trust lies in life pushing through my body. That for the longest time, I thought that the intensity I felt when I had a vulnerable emotion and I didn't know how to share it or I didn't know how to process it, that it was something that was wrong with me or something that had a grip over me, or maybe it was a black hole like we've talked about before and I wouldn't be able to get out of it.
And you're clenching against it. You're defending against it.
Because it's unfamiliar and it's scary and it goes against everything you were ever told about how to be around people. But when I realized that what was creating the intensity of the emotion and why it was rising is because the more that I'm becoming is the life force that's pushing through, then I realized that I can trust life pushing and it's going to do the work it needs to do through my body. My body knows how to use life force to process energy and information. And to me, that life force is simply what grows my fingernails and grows your fingernails. Like it can be as simple as that. It's this movement of life energy that animates all of us. And when we allow ourselves to breathe deeply and to be present to our bodies as it's feeling emotions, then life can help us and support us in not only healing, but then in becoming, like you said, in becoming more. Because in that peace and that freedom that you felt on the other side, there was more of you there.
It's like, I called my body a vehicle before, and I think I used the word instrument. But if you think of your body as an instrument, if you've got all these different bits and pieces of shame and anger and anxiety and not enoughness clogging up your instrument, the light can't shine through.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt when I got rid of that. And on, multiple occasions, I have done that. And it feels like I can feel my own light. I can share my own light. I can connect with a divine light. And that's an incredible difference in my life. And the one other thing I want to say, because I don't want to leave people without explaining, when I was talking in that description about my hands and my arms, curling up, and the fear that created, like, what is happening? And I can't straighten them out. And I almost went into my head because of that fear. And you just kind of, brought me back with your beautiful gaze. You explained afterwards that that's because our arms, I always put my hands out to the side, reach my hands out to the side when I say this, our arms are part of our heart chakra.
Yeah.
And that was my poor little heart chakra. I was having a heart chakra attack,
Yeah.
basically.
Absolutely. Like a lot of, and it's the center of identity, right? Like I'm Anne, I'm Nancy. Like this is where we know ourselves to be. So when you're processing a lot of emotions like that, you're also letting go of limiting beliefs around who you are and your capacity. And so this whole, energetic level in the heart, which people would call the heart chakra, is when there's big shifts, the arms are connected to that. And also your nervous system is rewiring, like your flesh is rewiring. So it's almost like a moment of stillness to rewire with that life energy that's moving through.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And if I were listening, I might say, well, that sounds a little woo woo, but I know it to be true physically. So even that part of my brain that still wants to go, oh, I don't know if I'm, if I am 2 feet on the path, that sounds 2 feet on the path to bring it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But I know it to be true.
Yeah.
And it was really a thing of beauty. And I have watched, even as recently as last week when we were in Kauai, I've watched it happen for people. And I, like you, now have a smile on my face because I think there is nothing more beautiful than to see someone allow that sense of liberation through the tightness and the fear, and just to break through it and say, okay, I'm going to live differently now, because that's what you do on the other side of it.
I love that. Thank you for taking the time to explain that. When you're right in it, it's hard sometimes to see it for what it is. And so I absolutely love hearing from your perspective what it is that I do.
Do you remember when I gave you my manuscript? I said, Anne, you have to promise me, if I have too much of you in here, please tell me and I'll just edit some out. Because the problem is that it's true that so much of my journey from showing off to showing up has to do with my work with you. So
Well,
I could talk all day with you, you know that. And this is making me miss those days. I can't believe I'm saying this, during the lockdown in 2020, when you and Carol and Celine and I all would get on and just share, and there was an audience with us, and they would make, comments or ask questions afterwards, but we were just showing up in the most raw way. And you and I can talk for hours and hours, but not today because you have limits. And
well,
so do I.
yeah, exactly. Well, just to finish, I do want to say, like, that's right back at you, like, Nancy, like, you've been such an inspiration for me in my life as well. Like, you bring that beautiful fire and that beautiful, like, bring yourself out into the world energy, and which is, you've taught me so much, and the way that you live your life so boldly and with courage and enthusiasm and so much love. Like, yeah, you inspire me too, my friend.
Well, I love you, and thank you so much for this opportunity. The marketer in myself says, "Oh, I should tell people that
Yes.
the first season of my show called Showing Up is on YouTube, and you can just Google Nancy Regan Showing Up, and you can find it." And I promote that not because it's my show. In fact, it's not even my show. It's a team of people who I love so much. And we are having such fun and joy in creating this program because we are shining a light on people who deserve it. And I've had many people say, wow, this is what I needed right now because the world is so heavy. It is light. It is just, it's joyful.
And you're filming the second season right now?
Yeah.
And where can people find it?
Oh, well, the second season, so it's produced, it's sponsored by, presented by Eastlink. So Eastlink finances us, or triggers the financing. It's a little complicated. And so it runs on Eastlink, but they were kind enough after the first season aired to allow us to put all the episodes on YouTube, because I really felt it was important to share them more broadly.
Amazing.
And yeah, so
You-
there are several reasons for that, but I'm excited about that. And the other thing is, if is anyone is interested in my book, it's also available in audiobook everywhere. So that's easy.
It's a very heartfelt book. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you, my friend. Let's do this again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, talk
Okay.
to you soon.
Okay.
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 Mwah.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Words on the street, they say that you don't care about me anymore. But you know it's in the way they walk, in the way they talk. I don't believe a thing, I don't believe a thing they say. You know I love you anyway.